Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements. And Sean, you're looking rested. But you shouldn't be rested because something monumental, something incredible, God just kind of walked in the room on March 1st for you.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had our little baby. It turns out it's a boy.
A boy.
Yeah, his name
Congratulations.
is Leo Cannon Spencer Noble.
Okay, so you're going to have to tell our listeners and your co-host where the name comes from.
So Leo was something Alyssa thought of. I like it a lot. We're both Leos from the horoscope, whatever, astrology. But as I've been becoming Catholic, there's a lot of Pope Leos.
Yes.
Apparently, Leo is also the fact that he was born on March 1st has significance, apparently, because march in like a lion and out like a lamb. Something that has to do with March.
So very biblical. Some biblical imagery.
Yeah.
So I had a grandfather named Leo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. And Cannon comes from Joseph Cannon, one of the most powerful speakers of the House.
Of course.
Cannon,
why not?
Cannon House Office Building is named after him. That's where Alyssa and I met.
Okay.
While we worked for John Shadegg, who was always in the Cannon Building.
Yes.
This whole time in Congress.
If you're smart, you stay in the Cannon Building.
Yes. And Leo and Spencer are both a connection to Winston Churchill. Because Churchill's is Winston, Leonard, Spencer, Churchill.
There you go.
So, but we're not Leonard, it's just Leo.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
So
I mean that's a lot.
We just
a lot of significance.
The only we've got the Reagan, we've got the Churchill, we need the Thatcher, maybe the Pope Trump. No, we're done.
Okay.
So this is the third for me and Alyssa.
Yeah.
We have Reagan, Vin, and Leo.
And you have had 8 overall.
And this is my 8th. That's correct.
8.
So that's my next tattoo.
Is 8 enough?
8 is enough.
Okay.
8 is enough. 8 is enough.
Wow.
So
and all that, and there was nothing happening this week.
This week, yeah. I was like,
wow.
It
was so funny because you had your baby last week, and I was like, I'm reading, I'm listening, and I'm like, do I send this to him? Do I send him this article? Do I send him this podcast? Oh, listen to this if you're not doing anything. Because
I actually have
there's
had
so much happening.
More time in the car because I've got to do all the traveling with taking the kids to
school.
school.
Yeah, you've got to.
Usually,
you're on point
Alyssa will
for
take
that.
Reagan and I'll take Vin, but now it's me taking both. So, so I've had some good time to listen to some podcasts and catch up on things as well on other people's podcasts, our podcast. So let's start with chronologically.
Yeah, where should we go from here?
McConnell announces that he's not going to stay as the leader.
It seems like a lifetime ago.
I know it really
that
does.
Seems like forever.
And I put out a little tweet. I think that it is interesting to me how much anger from the right there is at McConnell and has been for years.
I think.
This guy is going to go down in history as one of the most significant senators ever.
Yeah.
Probably the most significant Senate leader ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I'm not kidding. They should name any of the buildings on the Senate side after McConnell, and they probably will. I would think.
I think they would have to.
I mean, this guy did more than anybody else to advance the conservative agenda, even when he was being attacked by conservatives.
Yeah,
constantly attacked by conservatives because he understood, having come up in the Reagan era, that you go as conservative as you can to pass, right? It's not, I'm going to just go totally conservative. If you don't give me 100%, I'm going to just go away.
Yeah.
He's willing to take 25, 40, 50% of good policy, knowing that he can incrementally go back. He was, in more modern times, he was key to the pullback of Obamacare, in the sense that when people forget how much influence he and Senator Kyle had in reframing what the Obama administration wanted to do. They wanted to pass a public option.
Yes.
Full on socialized medicine.
Yes.
And
if they had the option today, they would still try that.
Yeah. And Senator Kyle, in his position on the Finance Committee and as the whip, and Senator McConnell as the leader, did a remarkable job and keep in mind, they were in the minority, did a remarkable job of reframing and pushing back on that legislation so as to make it less bad. And they were
make it sort of.
and they were, and by delaying, by continuing to push and delay, because the Democrats tried to get this through in the fall of 2009. Well, guess what happened in December of 2009? That's when Ted Kennedy passed away.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an open seat, and there was a special election in Massachusetts. And they had 60 seats, so they could do whatever they wanted. And then all of a sudden, McConnell comes in, the right comes in, Scott Brown gets elected in the special election in Massachusetts, and there's no more 60 votes in the Senate for the Democrats. So now they have to pass Obamacare on a reconciliation, which means they have to basically, they
basically have to gut the bill.
well, they passed a
over.
draft bill,
Yeah.
which is why it was so screwed up to begin with. But anyway, the point is that, and then, you know, the most remarkable part of McConnell's tenure has been the reframing of the courts.
Yes.
And
Yeah, you have to give Mitch McConnell
that
nickname Cocaine Mitch.
yeah, that dude stood up to the worst of the worst when it came to preventing Merrick Garland
Absolutely.
from going onto the Supreme Court.
Whom is still carrying a grudge.
Oh, yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You would think. And then also making very prophetic remarks with regard to Harry Reid's torpedoing of the filibuster when it came to judicial nominees.
Yep.
And Mitch's, I don't have it pulled up here. I probably should have, but to paraphrase, he said, "You will regret this, and you will regret this probably sooner than later."
And that's exactly what happened.
Sure enough, they were trying to torpedo Trump's nominees to the Supreme Court, and Mitch is like, "Okay, here we go.
Here we go. You guys didn't do you torpedoed the filibuster for judicial? Okay, then that's what we're going to do."
Yep.
And sure enough, we have Trump got 3 real solid conservatives on the court. So, speaking of the court.
Speaking of the court.
Speaking of the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court which
Great segue.
Made by
I
Mitch
didn't even
McConnell.
think about that, but I'll take credit
They
for it.
had as we predicted, a 9-0 ruling saying to Colorado, nope, you cannot kick the president off the ballot, or you cannot kick Trump off the ballot for this, 14th Amendment garbage.
Well, what they said was it's not even in your purview as a state court. It's not even under your jurisdiction. It's under federal jurisdiction. You can't do it.
It was unanimous. Now, the little interesting thing about it was that you had the three left wingers on the court, do a concurrence with a little objection, and you had Amy Coney Barrett do a concurrence with a little objection. So they had those 4 said to the 5, which would have been the rest of them, we think because what they did is they said, not only does Colorado not have the ability to do this, it takes an act of Congress
yes.
in order to implement this. The 4 other justices said, well, maybe not. Maybe that's the court going a little bit too far. I happen to agree with them on that.
You do?
I do.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with them. I think the Congress has ultimate purview over something like this. And especially in terms of deciding whether an insurrection actually occurred, by the President of the United States.
Yeah.
When the 14th Amendment was passed, it was a Civil War relic, basically. Trying to keep members of the Confederacy from running for Congress.
Well, this could be tested.
Yeah.
Because if the Democrats keep the House and decide, maybe we're going to do some things different if they take the House, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be a little bit messy. They're already drawing up a bill, So
Jamie Raskin already said that they're going to drop a bill, and
after saying that it
was
inevitable
get
that
anywhere.
Trump was going to not be on the ballot. Well, So the Democrats are in a little bit of a panic because all of these escape hatches that they thought were going to prevent them from having to face Donald Trump have not come about.
Well, and it begets the question of what sort of reality are they living in? Because even in the next case that the Supreme Court has agreed to hear, which is the immunity case, presidents have a certain level of immunity. And everybody is saying, oh, well, they're going to decide against Trump on this. There's no way they're going to decide in his favor. I think they're going to make a very narrow ruling, but certainly any president, unless you want a banana republic, does not want to be prosecuted for his decisions while in office when he leaves office.
Right.
You know, if he orders a drone strike like Obama did many times against
or Bush or Clinton
or Bush or Clinton or whoever, against terrorists, and then some prosecutor out in Podunk, wherever, America decides, well, that wasn't really a terrorist, we should prosecute you.
Yeah,
it could be a complete slippery slope. There's got to be some level of immunity for American presidents, and I hope they clarify it.
Yeah, they likely will, because it does open a certain can of worms. Now, the next big piece of news this last week.
There's more?
We're just getting started, Chris. Yeah. Senator Sinema has announced that she is not going to run for re-election.
She had the mushy metal wide open. Wide open.
Now,
you had a great post that we put up online about this.
She has, in the short time that she's been there, been one of the most consequential senators we'll have ever seen.
She has
just from Arizona,
been a contrarian maverick in many ways.
Now, the reason
in the spirit of Arizona.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, look, there's a lot of things that she's done that I disagree with, a lot. Sure. But I cannot ever take away how much I appreciate what she did to prevent the nuking of the filibuster in general. Now, people need to remember that the Democrats held complete control. So Biden got elected in 2020. There was a Democrat Senate. There was a Democrat House. They had complete control, and they could try to do whatever they wanted. And the only thing stopping them was the filibuster.
Yep.
And the things that they wanted to do included making D.C. and Puerto Rico states, so there would be 4 new Democrat senators, and who knows how many Democrat House members. Yep. They wanted to...
It sounds so corrupt, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they wanted to increase the number of Supreme Court justices so that they could pack the court with, I think they wanted to go to 13, so they're going to add 4 more, which would swamp what the 6-3 conservative majority looks like right now. So that would have been gone. They wanted to pass a very restrictive gun control bill. They wanted to pass abortion on demand.
They wanted to raise your taxes through the roof.
Through the roof. They wanted to...
They wanted to go from a 28% or 21% corporate tax to a 50% corporate tax.
And the Green New Deal, which was trillions of dollars of waste.
Trillions of dollars of waste.
These were all things that were teed up to go as soon as they could kill the filibuster, and there was one person who said no. Well,
even though he was wishy-washy, you have to give Manchin a little credit.
Manchin
could have actually done more, and he didn't.
Right. Sinema stood up and said, I will absolutely not nuke the filibuster. And it literally saved the country.
Yeah.
That's not hyperbole. She saved the country from a expanded Senate and House and expanded Supreme Court and a huge leftward lurch of the body politic.
And then her, even though she voted with Joe Biden like 99% of the time, her entire party turned on her.
Yeah.
And now you have a relatively moderate senator who then turned independent in a purplish state, who probably could have won re-election handily, handing it over to a Ruben Gallego, who everyone's like, oh, he's got the inside straight. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean,
it's anybody's guess.
Well, let's put it this way. And I was going to get to this a little later, but we can go to it now. Gallego, it's now going to be Gallego and probably Lake.
And Kerry Lake.
I think, Mark Lamb is saying, hey, with Sinema out, this is a real Republican primary. He does point out that he polls better than Lake in the general against Gallego. That's interesting, not surprising. But Lake continues to play a game of political subtraction.
Yeah.
Not political
That's
addition.
the biggest question. Is
And-
she willing to learn how to add?
And I don't know that
And-
she is. The Democrats are convinced that she's not. They're already saying, "Hey, we think we've got this." I mean, Gallego raised $1 million in the 24 hours after the Sinema announcement. $1 million.
Yep.
That's more money than what Kerry Lake has on hand right now.
Yeah.
That's
And Sinema had $10 million on hand.
yeah.
You know, begs the question: what's she going to do with all that?
Right.
Who's she going to give it to?
Well, I mean,
Gallego?
I don't know.
I doubt that.
She can start a foundation and
Yeah.
go do, I mean, look, there's
She could
lots
start her own
there's
think tank.
There's lots of things that Sinema can do that can be a part of the conversation moving forward, because we definitely need to, I mean, sure, I would commend anyone to watch her video in which she announces that she's not running for re-election, because she points out that as a person who tries to get deals done, that it's clear to her that that's not what voters want right now. And that's unfortunately true.
Yeah.
They don't want people who have consensus. This
You know
is all about
What's really interesting about Kirsten is she's gone from this lefty green, flamboyant, state legislator to a relatively moderate to almost conservative congresswoman to now this independent maverick in many ways. And I remember when I first saw Kirsten, I was like, well, who is this person? And then over the course of many years, I got to know her a little bit. And I like Kirsten. And Kirsten, several years ago, was very kind to me, took some time with me after we sold our company. And I'll never forget that. And like you, I mean, we probably disagree, and I know we disagree on a lot of things, especially social issues. But she held the line on taxes. She held the line on regulation. She understood that she represented Arizona.
yeah.
In the core of Arizona in many ways, and I have a great deal of respect for her for that.
Yeah.
You know?
There's just no question in my mind that Goldwater is looking down, smiling, saying, that's the kind of senator to be. Someone who can get things done, who can buck against the pressure of the establishment, saying you need to get rid of the filibuster. She gave a damn.
Yeah,
She gave a damn.
absolutely.
And she was willing to stand up. And you could say she sacrificed her career for it, because as a result of her
she has something else in mind.
well, maybe, but the point is that she went independent because the Democrats completely ostracized her because she would not go along.
And,
so
and
she
if they
gave up her position.
They would skip into this election. I'm not convinced that Ruben Gallego is going to have such an easy time. I think
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but Lake's not going to. I mean,
yeah,
it's certainly not going to be easy for Lake.
no. Well, and again, we've said it many times. She needs to learn how to add.
Well,
and she can. She has the skills for it. She just doesn't know how to.
I don't know that she has she may have the skills for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
No, I think she does. She's bought into this MAGA sort of. This is the way I need to be to court favor with the MAGA people, without understanding the landscape that's in front of her, which is this purplish, contrarian electorate, and she can lean into that. But will she?
Look, she's not doing anything to appeal to the moderate middle. Right?
Listen, I mean, before she was in September of the governor's race, she was leading by 10 points, and then she totally went MAGA crazy the last month of the election when people started paying attention. She kept tacking to the right, and she lost. She insulted the McCain, she insulted the Ducey faction of the party, she insulted everybody, and then she lost by 17,000 votes, by your estimate. It was the most incredible implosion, maybe in political history. Well, she could have been the governor.
And here's a stat that will,
because what we have now is not working.
Right. But here's a stat that the people that this and I would ask the Lake people to really, really think about this. There were of the people who cast a ballot in Arizona in 2022, 36,500 left the governor's line blank. She lost by 17,000.
Yeah.
36,500 left that line blank. The vast majority, I would guess the vast majority of those people were right-leaning who could not
center right.
who could not stomach voting for it. It's the same type of people, the 60,000 in 2020 that did not vote for Donald, that left the presidential line blank.
Yeah.
So you had 36,500 who left the governor's line blank. She needs every one of those people.
Absolutely.
And she put out a tweet yesterday that took a shot at Nikki Haley she's like, Nimrata Haley has dropped out after being crushed by the Trump machine. It's like it's racist, it's mean, and it's completely unnecessary. Because guess what? I would bet so the election for president, the presidential primary is on March 19th here, right? There's a bunch of ballots that have already been cast because we have mail-in voting. I would bet that there's going to be, even though Nikki Haley has dropped out at this point, and we'll get to that. We're there.
We're there right now.
Yeah. Nikki Haley's dropped out. She's still going to get tens of thousands of votes.
Yeah.
And those are people that Carrie Lake just said, fuck you.
Yeah. Whoa.
I mean, she did.
Yeah.
She basically gave him the finger.
It's again, it's the politics of subtraction.
Yeah.
This idea that you represent this part of the party and therefore we don't need you. It's the Matt Gaetz of the world. It's the Carrie Lakes of the world. And it's complete, total insanity. It's why we have so much dysfunction in politics in and of itself.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, Carrie Lake, whomever, need those voters to win.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Well,
unless you court those voters and change their mind about you.
Here's what I'll say. I'll finish on this. So Trump is going to win Arizona, and I'll get to that. And Lake is going to lose. That's my prediction right now.
Well, we've been so good at predictions.
Right. Now, there's a couple things.
We've been really good at them.
A couple things that have to play out as far as the Democrats go. But we'll get into that. But let's.
Well, I mean, but you're getting to a point of. Okay, go ahead.
I
don't know. It's likability there will play a huge part in that, and it'll be interesting to see once we get into this how likable people feel about Ruben Gallego versus a Carrie Lake, and how likable Donald Trump becomes to the general electorate.
Well, and
I think the biggest thing that Donald Trump has to do to win this thing is just to be quiet.
Yeah,
let Joe Biden be Joe Biden.
Frankly,
because everything's just gonna.
Everything we talked about Trump, before about just get off Twitter. I mean, that's what Lake needs to do. She needs to get off social media.
Yeah. Because
she's not adding votes.
No.
Anytime she posts something, she's pissing somebody off.
Yeah.
Because she just thinks that's the way that's how we do that. It's not. She's undermining herself.
She recorded you about this.
I'm sure she did, and please release it.
Yeah.
Because people will see the advice that I tried to give. Anyway.
Nah, your advice is sound. And
so
it's sad because there's a lot of skills that she does have where she could be effective, but she doesn't. She's making herself unlikable, undesirable. And that's the difference, actually, when you talk to even middle-of-the-road, center-right Republicans about a Kyrsten Sinema. Oh, I don't agree with her on everything, but gosh, I really like her.
Yeah, that is so true.
Gosh, I really like her. She was really nice to me. She did X for me, or she did X for my business, or she did Y for my friend's business, or whatever. She's really good. She shows up at this meeting. She shows up at that meeting.
Right.
That's what people say about Kyrsten.
Exactly.
Who are center right.
We had Super Tuesday. Trump, closed the door. Obviously, the next day, Nikki dropped out. Nikki did win Vermont. Now that's in part because non-Republicans.
How many Republicans? I guess I could have looked at this, but how many Republicans are really in Vermont?
Not very many.
And DC. How many?
Yeah, not many.
10?
So
15?
she had 2 wins, right? She had DC and
it wasn't
Vermont.
A high bar.
No. But the thing about the thing that I find interesting about Super Tuesday is the numbers on the turnout. So I looked at a couple places. Virginia, Nothing else on the ballot. Literally just the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
So you had Trump and Haley and, all the people who dropped out who may have still been on the ballot. On the Democrat side, you had Biden and Dean and Marianne Williamson on the ballot. So there was, contested primaries in both. So the total number of ballots cast in the Democrat primary was 350,000. Now, Biden won by a landslide, right? And Trump won by a landslide on the Republican side. So 350,000 ballots cast on the Democrat side, 675,000 on the Republican side.
So a lot. Yeah. Well, did you look at Texas?
I looked at Texas as well.
Yeah.
And
Texas is even more dramatic.
Texas is even more dramatic. Let me pull this up. So the Democrat
I
primary,
heard the number the other day. It's unbelievable.
Democrat primary in Texas. The total, let's see. Oh, so I was looking at what I wanted to look at. Well, I guess I'll do the presidential. Let me do the Senate one first, because there's Senate. So there was a contested primary for the Democrats, truly contested primary for the Democrats to run against
several people running.
Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had a couple of opponents, not super major, but the total turnout for the Democrats in the Senate campaign was, let's say that's 800,000
For the Democrats.
for the Democrats,
Okay.
800,000.
And for the
For
Republicans?
the Republicans, it was 2.3 million.
3 million. I was waiting for you to get to it because I had actually 600,000 in my head for the Democrats, but 2 point
Well, that's what this
whatever
one I got.
million. So what you're illustrating there is a massive just enthusiasm.
There's
gap.
a massive enthusiasm gap.
Yeah.
The Democrats,
It's huge.
That has got to be like a warning signal, like bright red lights.
Yeah, a lot of
flashing,
Republicans got out of
saying-
bed that day and were like, we're going to go vote for Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I mean,
Like 2 million people in Texas.
It's
Because
just
we're tired of what's going on the border. We're tired of everything that we're having to deal with here. We're going to go vote for Ted Cruz because we know that he gets it.
I mean, it is remarkable, and I think so. This tells me that there's so this goes back to. Well, let me add one more thing.
Goes back to Sleepy Joe.
Goes back to Sleepy Joe, and so then the other piece of news that's happened this week is that RFK Jr. has gotten enough signatures to qualify for the ballot. He's already on the ballot in New Hampshire, and Utah. Utah doesn't really count, but New Hampshire, that's significant, and he's got enough signatures now to get on the ballot in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, and he's coming close to Michigan. He does that, Trump wins.
Yeah.
Trump wins because in every poll in which RFK Jr. is in the mix, Trump's lead over Biden is increased. That's right.
Yeah. It takes away from Biden more than it takes away from Trump.
Yes. So, all right. So then you've got.
I still don't believe Joe Biden is the nominee.
That's
There's
where I'm
no
going.
way.
With the enthusiasm
There's no
gap,
way.
with the RFK Jr. problem, there's no way. And so then the latest piece of news, that Michelle Obama, definitive no. And she will be a definitive no.
Until the convention.
Until she's a yes.
Until August, when she's a yes.
And this, and I want Trump supporters to listen to this. You guys are being played.
Oh.
You're being played. And this is how you're being played. This is a psy-op against you because they're going to put Michelle Obama on the ballot in August, and she's going to swamp Trump. And there's nothing that we can do about it. And
those are stark terms.
I'm telling you, all these polls that show Trump in the lead and RFK Jr. pulling votes away from Biden, these are all things to make Trump voters feel like, hey, things are great.
Things are great.
And they're just the rug is going to be pulled out from under our feet. I'm telling you, we just have to be mentally prepared to get screwed.
It will be the October surprise in August.
Yeah.
Well, the way I was describing the other day, someone was asking me, how could they do something like that? I mean, Joe Biden's winning all the primaries. I go, because the Democrats are inherently corrupt the way they do their conventions. They have these massive superdelegates who are like the party apparatchik.
It's the elite.
And
They're not the
they
party
go
of the
behind the
people.
closed doors and they pick the winners and losers. And it's not democratic. It's complete, socialism. And they will go pick the winners and losers, and they will blow everything up.
Yeah.
And they'll put Michelle Obama right in there, and off we go.
Guys, I'm telling you, be prepared. And so whatever it is that needs to be done.
Now, could there be a complete other adverse reaction? Sure. Not likely.
I mean, unless we, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be. I really don't.
Yeah. And yet Democrats continue to say, no, she doesn't want it. She never's wanted it. And yet,
well, of course that's
yet
the lulling. That's part of the psy-op.
Do they? Okay, let's say for sake of argument that is true. Do they plop in a Gavin Newsom?
No, because they can't. You can't. The only person that it works for to leapfrog Kamala Harris is Michelle Obama. Because she's a black woman. It's just that simple. That
and like I said, with the balls to do it.
Sometimes the most simple answer is the answer. And that's the simplest answer of getting Kamala out of the way. It's putting Michelle there.
And there's nothing Kamala can do.
No.
There would be nothing that for her to say, do, fight, because it's a woman with greater prestige, cachet,
with favorability, like
blah blah blah.
The stratosphere.
Harris's favorability is lower than the president's, which is hard to do.
22%. She's done.
I think she's been stuck there for a while.
She's
last
done
time.
the amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and they trot her out there at all these. Oh, she stepped in it the other day with Israel. Stepped in it.
Yeah.
With the whole call for ceasefire.
I know. Okay, so
you have a list.
I do have a list.
This is what happens when you have a baby and you're up at like 1 a.m.
That's right.
You make lists for the
All
podcast,
right, so
which is fantastic.
My childhood baseball hero.
Oh my!
Growing up, Mr. Steve Garvey.
Until something happened.
What?
He was your childhood hero until one event made him not so much.
Whatever event it is, I don't know.
You don't know what it is?
He's still my childhood hero.
So he was my childhood hero until he left the Dodgers and went to the Padres. I never forgave him for that. Never. Told him that years ago. I'm like, no. When you went to the Padres, you broke a 10-year-old's heart.
Well,
or 11. I made 10 or 11.
I mean, it was that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
it was after the 81 series with Fernando. It was after that.
After 81. Yeah.
It was after that.
Well,
and broke my heart.
So my Steve Garvey story. Well, I have two Steve Garvey stories. One is that I grew up in Sholo, listening to the Dodgers, Vince Scully, the namesake of my son, and I was too poor to buy a Garvey shirt, so I made one. Took a white T-shirt and I made a home jersey, and I, even the red number on the front.
Oh yeah,
and the whole thing, 6. And I just proudly put it on and went to school. I was 6th grade. And my friend, who was not a baseball guy, but knew spelling, looked at it. He's like, "You spelled Garvey wrong." I forgot the E.
You forgot the E.
I forgot the E.
That's
And it was just devastating because nobody else knew that.
Yeah.
But he did.
The guy who doesn't even follow baseball.
John Nicholas was his name.
He's like, I'm not a big baseball fan, but I know how to spell Garvey.
Yeah. And I was like, it was so devastating. And then I did get a chance to meet Steve Garvey at Frank Lunt's house a few years ago. He was just very, very nice. I got a picture with him. Anyway.
I met him in the dugout with Sasha several years ago.
Nice.
He and Ron Say, we had dugout seats, and they were down there. And I didn't have much to say. I didn't challenge him on the Padres.
Yeah,
thing.
I'm sure
I was
he
like,
did.
and Sasha's like, who are these people? Steve Garvey, Ron
Say.
Say.
He's Dusty Lopes.
That whole team could have walked
Dusty
in the
Baker.
Yeah, Dusty Baker was, he's still a traitor.
All right. Anyway, so Steve Garvey running for the Senate.
No, he's a traitor.
Okay, whatever. I can't say that because my wife is a Giants
Fan? Oh,
huge
my
Giants fan. You
goodness.
know that. I mean, it was compromised to get Vin named Vin. So, Steve Garvey running for the Senate in California.
Yeah. Comes out second.
Comes out second. Well, comes out second in what
the jungle primary.
Some people don't understand. There were actually 2 primaries for the Senate because Gavin Newsom, in his infinite wisdom, decided that his temporary appointment for the Feinstein seat only was good until November. So the special election primary and the regular primary were on the same day.
Yeah.
So whoever wins the special election will serve in the Senate from the day after the election in November until swearing in January. Steve Garvey won over Adam Schiff for that primary by 3 points. Now they still have to go to the general, where he's likely to lose. But I just thought it was very interesting that he would win that particular race, but at the same time come in second to Schiff on the main Senate race.
Well, maybe there's hope.
I don't know.
Maybe there's hope. I mean,
of a
Adam
head-scratcher.
Schiff is probably one of the slimiest, scummiest congressmen in the history of our great republic. I mean, serious sleaze.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's in the lead in California is sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad because there's nobody sleazier than that guy.
That's right.
Just, you know, in our side, maybe it's a Matt Gaetz. Just sleaze.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I wish Steve Garvey well. Can he win? That's a heavy lift.
That's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift in a state like California.
Yeah.
But he has the star power and is iconic enough to make it interesting.
Yep.
And we have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And a lot can happen.
Well, a lot can happen.
And whenever anybody writes any race off, I'm always like, well,
I mean, California
you never know.
Is deep blue, but there are some signs in California. I mean, for example, in San Francisco, the 2 ballot initiatives, one was to increase police force, and one was to require single welfare recipients to pass a drug test.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
Yeah, in San Francisco.
In San Francisco.
And well, San Francisco is a city that's crumbling. It's in deep trouble, and the mayor there has finally seen the light, and these were initiatives that she supported, and hopefully they can right the ship. But our Democrats who keep saying that everything is coming up roses, are ignoring the border. They're ignoring the crime in the cities. And they're hoping everybody else ignores it as well.
Well, and it's a little more difficult to ignore.
Yeah.
What is it, yesterday or the day before? Governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, announces that she's going to put 1,000 National Guardsmen
in the subways
to fight the crime. And
doing what Eric Adams is just incapable, unavailable to do.
This goes to
he's going to too many club parties. He's out clubbing. Where's the mayor? He's out clubbing.
I don't know what his deal is, but New York PD is supposed to be one of the best police forces in the world, and even they are having a hard time keeping things under control. So the governor's sending
because
the
they've
National
lost
Guard.
like hundreds of thousands of members who've either been forced out or retired, and they can't recruit right now.
And all this, so the crime within cities, the increased illegal immigration into the cities, the border is a complete chaos. The news this week that the Biden administration has been flying illegal immigrants over the border, 320,000 of them. Yeah. 320,000.
Well, they've allowed in. Now they're admitting 8 million people.
Yeah.
Now they can't run away. They can't run away from that. And then the pictures of the president at the border last week are not going to do him any good, because he actually just looked like a assisted living patient, being assisted everywhere he went.
Right.
Could not walk 2 steps without somebody holding his arm.
Like I said, so State of the Union
Yeah, so
tonight.
Great segue, because how do you think he's going to do tonight?
Well,
How many drugs do you think they're going to
Jim
put
Garrity
into
from National Review put it the best.
I like Jim
Tonight
Garrity.
at 10 o'clock, we are going to hear from every member of the mainstream press that the president gave the best speech of his life.
they've ever heard.
I mean, and he's right. That's it. No matter how bad it is, it's going to be the best he's ever done.
Yeah, what do you think Joe Scarborough is going to say?
Oh my gosh,
It's going to be like
it's going to have a shake up his
Chris
day.
Matthews. Chris Matthews. Gosh, just shiver running down my leg. He was in command. He was in control.
So-
his eyes weren't as dilated as they normally are.
The question is, at what point? So he'll obviously talk about the border. He's going to blame Republicans in the House
Of course.
because he's going to say, "Look, we tried to do this deal, and the Republicans in the House killed this deal." But he's going to conveniently leave out that the day he got into office, he undid all of the Trump administration border policies
Yeah.
in one fell swoop.
Yeah, 21 of them, I believe, was the first
literally
count
they have.
that I've heard.
Boom. And all of a sudden there was a border crisis. I mean, it is so stark. I mean, it's the one thing that the American people, there's just no way that Biden can flip the script on
Yeah.
this. There's no way that he can make a credible case that he's the answer to the border instead of Trump.
Yeah.
Because it is Trump's DNA. I mean, from the day he went down the escalator in 2015 to today, the border has been his biggest consistency.
Well, and it, the mainstream media is showing in very stark contrast how completely and totally unbelievably disconnected they are with the American public. You had MSNBC the other day during Super Tuesday looking at the poll numbers. What are the number one? What's the number one issues in places like Virginia, in non-border states, and it's the border, it's immigration. Right. And they're like, how can this be? These people are so close to West Virginia.
They have a border of West Virginia.
Yeah.
That's a border.
No,
I mean,
it's because Joe Biden has imported this problem to every state in the union.
Yeah. And
where are you going to put 8 million people? You're going to put them everywhere. And,
Yeah.
and the vast majority of those people, are up to no good.
Well, what's interesting is that for us here in Arizona, we probably feel a little bit of this. I mean, we sense this, but it's really being sensed in places where it's never been seen before.
Nope.
That's
we've
what's
been dealing with this issue now for several decades.
Yeah.
With no apparent solution.
Yeah.
And we've tried our own our own solutions and been blasted for that. But now other states are going the same route.
Yeah.
They're going to try their own solutions.
So I think that who knows?
Sending out the National Guard to the New York subway system.
Yeah. That's a
If you did that in Arizona, it'd be like, oh, that's outrageous.
Right. I mean, it is such
and yet,
it is such a.
She's being applauded.
Yeah, but it is,
and rightfully so.
It is such an indictment of the Biden administration failure. Yeah. I mean, it's astounding.
And yet, Chucky Schumer is not going to take up the impeachment of Mayorkas. He's going to sit on it.
Well,
sit on it as long as he can, and then he's going to have to do something with
it. Yeah.
I mean, because there'll be enough vulnerable Democrats within his own caucus who will absolutely push him to do something.
Yeah.
The pressure will be overwhelming.
I agree with
that. They're going to be saying to him, I'm going to lose my seat unless you bring this up.
Well, and it's
up or down and get people on record.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what Biden says tonight. I mean, maybe it's interesting. I don't know. It's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be raucous. The House Republicans, there's no such thing as decorum anymore.
No.
So
there was a great article about Justice Alito, why he doesn't, in the Wall Street Journal this morning, about why he doesn't go to the State of the Union anymore, mostly because of what Obama did, back in 2010. But he made other points. He goes, people are just rude. And it's not enjoyable. You've got people cussing and hooting and hollering. There's no deference made to the president, no matter what. And it's just become a clown show.
Yeah.
Basically what he said.
Yeah. Well, and it's
meaningsless. Nothing happens.
And if I was a Supreme Court justice, I couldn't sit there with a straight face the entire time. So it'd be better for me not to go, because as a Supreme Court justice, you're supposed to be completely neutral. It'd be very hard to do that.
Yeah, and if you're not really on the aisle, there's people right now sitting there in the House, saving their seat.
Yeah, they're sitting there right now.
Yeah,
they're waiting
on that aisle.
They're waiting for the president, and it is hours and hours
it's
and hours.
1:23 in Washington D.C. And there's people in the House on the House floor right now saving seats.
So they're going to be there for another 7 or 8 hours.
Isn't there a rule that the member has to save the seat, or can staff?
Oh no, it has to be the member.
It has to be the member,
Yeah,
so they have to be there. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So anyone that that's a great point. So when you watch the State of the Union tonight, any person you see shaking the president's hand along the aisle,
they've been there all day.
They have literally been there for hours, so that they can.
It's so dumb.
Get that camera shot.
Get that
shaking
camera
the president's hand.
and tweet it back to the people back home.
Yeah. Look at me.
Look at me.
Look at me.
Clicks, chicks, and coin.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Matt Gaetz won't be on that aisle.
No.
No.
What I am going to be interested in seeing is how long the speech is, because if they're smart, they'll keep this thing to like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
but if it goes
45,
if it goes hour plus,
no, I agree with you. If it goes
see some wobbly,
longer,
then drugs only hold up for so long.
Yeah, if it goes longer than that, we're going to be in a rude awakening. Yeah, his brain is just going to fade. It might fade after 15 minutes.
If he ducks down behind the podium and you hear a sniff, then just a little shot of cocaine. Cocaine Biden.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, who do we think's coke? Look, the coke they found in the White House. Who was that for? Really?
Hunter.
No,
that was Hunter.
It was for the president to get him through the next press briefing.
Well, the last press briefing we saw, which was at 7:30 at night, we understood that he must have taken something.
Well, he was feisty, but he was also forgetful, because you can be feisty and still forgetful.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens tonight. Oh my goodness!
All right.
Well,
with that,
we'll be back next week to see
another exciting edition. We'll see if they bring a pillow for him. Maybe they'll bring a pillow.
They'll bring a pillow. Yeah.
If he starts sucking his thumb, we're in trouble.
All righty, folks.
God bless.
Wait. We got to wait. One more thing. Got to see if Mike Johnson tears up the speech.
He has class.
He has class.
He has a lot more class.
No pulling the Pelosi.
One thing, I mean, you can. I like Mike Johnson. I don't know him, never met him, but the way he handles himself, the way he carries himself. I mean, I think he endears himself to a lot of different people that don't want to like him, but like him. Likability is the most powerful force in politics, and if you don't have it, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
That's right. All right.
And with that,
take care.
All right, God bless.
Have a good one. Thanks.